everybody. Just a quick broadcast here in the middle of the day with regard to vaccines and Newark UPC. So as you all know, we are headed into a full thrust ahead with regard to vaccinations across the nation. And so I thought today would be a nice day to just kind of hop on real quick and bring you up to date with regard to that. Also remind you that tonight we have our digital campus broadcast at 7 o'clock. And I will be your speaker. And so don't miss it. So 7 o'clock, you'll want to make yourself available to that. But those of you that have joined us right now, I've got a guest with us. And so I'm going to invite her to join me. She's a good looking lady. And for those of you that are guests, that's not inappropriate because it happens to be my wife. So I'm supposed to consider her a good looking lady. And I do. So anyway, I've asked Regina to come on with me, and we're going to talk a little bit about vaccines, not in the weeds, not a whole lot of info, but just a little bit. We're going to share with you about vaccines and kind of where our thoughts are with regard to how this impacts the Newark church family. As you all know, if you don't know, let me remind you, we suffered damage last summer. So in the middle of this whole pandemic, we suffered damage to our church property. We were not meeting there, thankfully. And so the work has already begun on that. We are getting a new roof. There has to be completely rebuilding of our ceiling, that beautiful ceiling. The entire sanctuary will be repainted. All the carpet has been torn out and has to be replaced. We're redoing the bathrooms, and then we'll receive pew chairs. So we're replacing our pews with pew chairs. So all of that is going to take us into the month of June. All right. So the timing of that just has to do with the work that has to be done, the time that it takes, etc. So for those of you that are anxious to get back in person, first of all, I don't have a physical campus for you to come back to yet. And we've shared some updates about that you can find on our Facebook page. But when we start talking about also the efforts of returning to normal, vaccines play a critical role within that. And so one of the things I want to talk about is where we're at with regard to COVID in Delaware, where the status of vaccines are, the different vaccines. We got exciting news yesterday, or was it Friday, Regina?
Yesterday.
I think it was yesterday. Yesterday, full approval was given to Johnson & Johnson. So that's the third vaccine maker that has been approved. The only thing they're waiting on is the CDC direction about who it should apply to and in what order. So exciting developments there. We want to talk a little bit about that. And then how it intersects with the church. So the first thing I want to say to everyone here is that you, in order to come back to church, will not, everybody spell with me, N-O-T, I will not have to be vaccinated. It is your choice whether you are vaccinated or not. However, the choice about vaccination does impact our ability to come back to church. But I want to emphasize that if you, for either health reasons or choice reasons, do not choose to be vaccinated, that will not preclude you from coming to church. But it does impact when we come back to church. But I'll talk more about that. But I wanted to start at the outset because when you hear vaccination updates from Newark UPC, some of you might think, uh-oh, preacher's coming after us. Nope, not coming after you. Not going to force you to do anything that you're not comfortable with doing. I am not in the business of telling you how to handle your health, but I am in the business of informing you. And so that's kind of what I'm doing today is I want to share with you kind of the status of things. So Regina, what's the status of things in Delaware with regard to COVID? How are we doing?
Well, we have some excellent news. Just the U.S. in general, since Christmas, has the rates of hospitalizations and, exposure comes first, and then hospitalizations come a little bit later, and then deaths come. So all three of those, though, have been falling. Delaware is also doing that. If you could put up that slide or website or whatever you have.
All right. So what I'm going to share with you folks is there's a website that you can go to. In fact,
nope,
you want to write.
That one. Not that one.
Oh, you want the other one?
I want the other one.
Oh my goodness. There are technical problems on the broadcast. She did not give me the right slide. Please hold. Dead air. Here we go. No, you didn't. You told me we were starting with the website. All right, here
Hello.
we go, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Okay.
There's the website.
It is covidtracker.com, and I love this website because you can get very good specific data, and then you can also see these graphs for every state. Now, if you look at these, you can see that we have very good news. The big peak there over to the right of each of those, we have the tests, the cases, the hospitalizations, and then the deaths. All of those have been falling since that peak of Christmas, Thanksgiving, and then Christmas. And then you can see, though, at the right side of each of those graphs, except the deaths one, they're starting to have a little bit of an uptick. And from what I can tell, that is from the University of Delaware. They have started classes again. Some of them are on campus. Everybody probably knows that it is a heavy-duty party school. So they are trying to crack down on that, but it is not going real well. So that's what that
In fact, there's word, as you all know, two of my boys go there, and Marcus has been admitted to matriculate as well. And so on some of the parents' forums, there is a rumbling from the president that if it does not turn around, he's going to lock the campus down. So that scenario seems to be localized, you're saying, Regina, to not really
Yes.
Delaware, but really to the University of Delaware and the specific context of it.
Right. There's another, I think it's the Delaware specific, Delaware's website, delaware.gov, that has a map that you can see which zip codes are the worst. And the whole state of Delaware looks great, except for the one we happen to live in, because it is UAD, and it is bright blue. Everything else is like a gray, and it is bright blue. So Delaware itself is doing very well. And my point with this was, you can see it's falling. It has fallen. It is falling. That little uptick there, that is from UD. The problem is that we do have that little uptick, and it is still pretty at a high spot. So we need to keep that coming down as a state.
All right. What do you want me to show next? Okay.
You can take that off for a minute, and I'm going to just talk about vaccines in Delaware. We have, as you know, probably a population of about 900,000 to a million population in Delaware. We have given 216,000 and change vaccinations. So either we have over 100,000 people fully vaccinated, which isn't the case, because there's some people that have one shot and haven't gotten their second one yet. But somewhere around 100,000 people to 300,000 people have gotten either fully vaccinated or their first shot of the vaccine. So that is very good. That is at least 10%, could be as close, it could be up to 30% of the population has some amount of vaccine in them. So that's very, very good. 11, from what I can tell, that's about 11% of the doses. Now with Johnson & Johnson, it complicates it because it's only one dose. But if everybody in Delaware got both shots of the vaccination, this would be 11% of that number. So that's a pretty good number. It's not great. We wish it were better, but we're making progress. And so that is a very good thing. We also have in the population, when you start talking, I'm sure you've heard in this whole thing, we've all learned so much about epidemiology and public health and all this stuff. But herd immunity is that spot where so much of the population has immunity that it stops being passed around. There's not enough people to pass it to. So we are pushing at that herd immunity because some people already have been sick, whether they knew it or not, and so they have some immunity. If you have been sick, you're still going to need the vaccine. But so that's good news. Very, very good news. We're not sure exactly when that herd immunity will happen. We're thinking probably 75% of the population vaccinated will will really do that for us. So you can see that
So
we have a long way to go, but we're getting there.
So is it accurate then to say that basically for the last year, the environment has been hostile to humans? Basically, the virus has owned the environment and it's hostile to us. We're hiding from the virus. We are now beginning the steps towards the environment becoming hostile because of vaccinations and because of the immunity that comes from having been sick, those that survived. The environment is getting more and more hostile to the virus.
It needs to be able to pass from one person to at least one other person to stay alive. And if by either mask wearing or social distancing or that kind of thing, or if the population is immunized or immune from some other infection or whatever, that virus can't pass to another person. There's no one to pass it to, and it will eventually mathematically die off. It is a process, though. It isn't something that happens bada bing, bada boom overnight. We suddenly have herd immunity, yay, throw the balloons up in the air.
And this is why we've got mutations going on as well, correct? Is the virus is trying, put in simple terms, layman's terms, my terms, is trying to survive because as the environment becomes hostile, it's mutating.
How big of a lesson do you want?
Very short.
Okay, viruses are always mutating. It's just a mathematical thing. Sometimes they mutate to their negative and then they die off quicker. But of course, to use the term a lot
you mean there are dumb viruses and smart viruses? The dumb ones mutate to their demise, the smart ones mutate to their survival?
Since they're not technically living, I wouldn't give them smart or dumb. I would say some of
them. Come on, Regina. Can't we at least have a little fun in the middle of this mess?
Some of them have
good folks, I'm going to call them dumb and smart viruses, even if it's not medically correct.
Some of them have dumb accidents and some of them have smart accidents.
Oh, so it's accidental. All right.
It is accidental. But the dumb ones, the accidents don't help them survive longer, and the smart ones does help them either pass or survive longer. So if you think about it, with each person who gets it, there is an opportunity for a mutation. Now, around Christmas time and during this winter, we have had so many people have it that the opportunity for mutations has been abundant because so many people have had it. Now, there will always be some opportunity for variation, and such as the flu virus, obviously it changes. Viruses always change. Some of them are more stable than others, and we haven't known how stable COVID was. But with all of the passing around that has happened in the winter and over the holidays, it has just had plenty of opportunity to have some more of these smart accidents, and that has happened. And so now we have to kind of relearn what it's doing.
So it's actually the opposite of what I'm saying is as it becomes more hostile, that's not really what's causing the mutations. And in fact, the opportunity for mutations is more open to it when there is a lot of transmission, because then as it moves from each person, the accidentals or the coincidental mutations or adjustments to it happen as it moves from person to person. All right. So I don't want to keep this broadcast too long. So let me rush us along real quick then. So vaccines in Delaware, we're doing well, but need to do better. Obviously, that's kind of the picture of the nation in the last couple of months. We're doing better.
Correct.
We need to continue to accelerate there. So talk a little bit about I mentioned at the top of the broadcast that there are now 3 vaccines that have been approved. And we're only waiting for guidance from the CDC for the third one, the J&J one. And they each have different efficacies. What's an efficacy? What is it? What does that mean? And what does it not mean?
Okay. Efficacy is a big word for effectiveness, basically. It's what I like to say. It is, it's very specific and scientific, and efficacy, I believe, means it's not passed at all. So when you hear that hang on a second. I'm going to put a pin in one thing. We do need to come back to the Delaware timeline, but we can move on to this and then come back to that.
Okay.
That the Johnson & Johnson, you may have heard, has a 72% efficacy or effectiveness against symptoms. Okay, it's one shot. There are advantages to this vaccine because it is one shot. It doesn't need the really, really cold refrigeration that Pfizer needs, for instance. And so it's easier there's not as much waste because it's easier to handle. You don't have to have so much special equipment. So this is a vaccine that's probably, with my missions exposure, probably going to be used a lot in developing countries and such. But we have it, and it is a vaccine that has 72% effectiveness against symptoms. Let me compare that to the other two we have. Pfizer is 95% effective against symptoms, and the Moderna vaccine is 95% effective against symptoms. Now, so you might say, why would I settle for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine if I can get it? Maybe I should hold out for one of the other two because
now wait a minute. When you say effective against symptoms, that means even catching it?
We're still not sure whether you can transmit it. So you might technically have it on board, but it's not going to cause symptoms.
Okay, so when we talk about that you won't catch it, we don't know for sure whether these vaccines are stopping you from catching it, but we know that those efficacy numbers we're talking about that we show you're asymptomatic at the very least, and you might not have caught it at all.
Right.
All right. So then now we're talking about
caught it is a very unscientific term also, but I'll let you use it.
Here we go again. That's why I have a nurse on. All right. So I'm trying to keep the broadcast going and keep it down in layman's terms here, technical. So.
And that's why we have you on.
What's the efficacy? Well, yeah, that plus I'm loud and bombastic. But what's the efficacy? What's the difference between that number, which of course we see a discrepancy, the high 95s with Pfizer and with Moderna, and it's down in the 70s or 60s with the J&J. But what's the efficacy? They all talk about that's about catching it or showing symptoms. What's the efficacy about keeping you out of the hospital or keeping you off a ventilator or tamping down or minimizing your symptoms? In other words, basically making it so that it's not life-threatening, and in fact it reduces it back to what many claimed falsely was all this is the flu. Well, no, it's not just the flu, but with the vaccine, it tends to minimize things. What's the difference there?
Yeah, because if I get COVID, if I have the vaccine and I am exposed to COVID, I pick it up and I get a cough and a slight temperature. That is symptomatic. Even if it's for half a day, that is symptomatic. So that is part of those 72%, the other 28%. They might have very mild symptoms. The Johnson & Johnson is 85% effective against moderate and severe, and it is 100% effective against death. The thing I read was hospitalizations and death, and so I'm not sure, because it seems to me that if you got severe complications, you would need hospitalization. But basically, it is if you've gotten this vaccine, even Johnson & Johnson, from what we can tell right now, you will not die of COVID.
So all three, while they're not equal in the efficacy of keeping you from having symptoms or from catching it, they are 100% or nearly 100% effective at causing you not to die and really causing you not to go into the hospital. Out of 30, what did you say the one study you looked at was 30-some thousand, only one person was hospitalized?
Yes.
All right. And so that's also, the point.
Also, I'm also hearing, and I haven't found a specific study about this, but it also seems like I'm hearing Johnson & Johnson is better against some of these variants. It's a totally different kind of vaccine than Pfizer or Moderna. And so the variants maybe aren't disturbing it as much. It's stable against the broader.
All right. So then let's hop back over
Hang
then.
on a second. I have one more thing, and it's very quick. But to give you some context of this effectiveness of vaccines, let me name off some other vaccines and their efficacy. And you think as I talk about them, have you ever heard of somebody with this? Polio is what we really want to have a vaccine do. It is 99 to 100% effective against polio, which is wonderful. We don't want polio in our society. Measles is 97% effective. It's a bug that's very easily spread, so that's a good thing. Chickenpox vaccine is 92% effective. However, when was the last time you heard of somebody with whooping cough? Or the technical name is pertussis. Have you ever known anybody with whooping cough, Steve?
Nope.
No.
I've gone whoop whoop, but I don't think that's whooping cough.
It is 48% effective. But enough people in our society have had the vaccine to whooping cough that I've never seen anybody with whooping cough. So
okay.
If enough people get it, and it's even a decent vaccine, the epidemiologists were hoping for a vaccine in the early days that would be 50%. And we have these 78, 95%. And it's really awesome because that's a wonderful, very legitimate vaccine.
All right. So what's the status? How are we doing with regard to in Delaware? And I'm assuming this is where I need to put this one up.
Yes.
You all can go and check this out at coronavirus.delaware.gov vaccine.
Yes. And there is a vaccine timeline. This is what we're looking at here. So ethics, this is an interesting ethics question. When you get a vaccine for a pandemic, who gets it first? Well, we said as a society that healthcare workers who were protecting our whole society, and we had to keep the society running. Those frontline healthcare workers were to get the vaccine first. Also, because it is so dangerous to our elder people, and so many of them in our society are in long-term care units, they also got it first. So you see that is the phase 1A that we have already moved through. There may be some people in those fields who haven't gotten the vaccine yet, but they were first. So that is what we decided as a society. We have already done that. We are currently now, you can see, in phase 1B. So if you are 65 years of age or older, why 65 years of age or older? Because those are the people who tend to have severe complications from this. So we as a society said we're going to protect our elders first, and that's what's happening right now. Also, our essential workers, some of our essential workers, such as food processing plants. Think about a society if we don't have food processing plants, that's bad. Police and fire, also teachers in Delaware. The teachers are getting vaccinated right now. And that's phase 1B. There are, if you go to this website, click around, there are places you can find out about how to get a vaccine. If you are one of those people, you can see it right here. Where can I get vaccinated if I am in phase 1B? And then you click on that. Phase 1C, they were hoping to start March 1st, but it's not happening. Hopefully will be pretty soon. I've also heard mid-March. 1C is people with high risk medical conditions, obesity, sickle cell disease, I know is in there. There's some other ones that put you at risk. And so we as a society said we are going to guard those people next because, again, they're more at risk to severe complications. Also in 1C, we have congregate living facilities such as homeless shelters, prisons, those kinds of things. Another set of essential workers, food service workers, houses of worship. Woo woo.
So what this does mean is, it does mean, if this works the way we understand it, is that at some point when 1C starts, it means that your pastoral team, some of your children and youth teachers, support personnel, basically, and I have to figure out from the state how expansive they're being with regard to that term support personnel. We don't want to abuse it, but also by doing that, that will then free up the ability for us to do some of the ministry things that we have not been able to do. One of the biggest challenges that we've had is had to say to some of our folks, no, we're not doing an in-person funeral right now.
Painful.
It's absolutely painful. It's an expression of people dying alone because they're not able to have people there. But it won't help a situation of death if more people die. So obviously this will begin to have an impact on how we're able to do ministry. Again, we don't have clarity about when we're going to be able to gain access to this. But as this happens, it will not affect us coming back in person. I'll address that in a moment, but it will affect the ability for us to be more responsive in certain in-person ways. And that we'll do that cautiously, we'll do that carefully, but it will have an impact there. So We're hopeful that across March or April, you're going to begin to see that begin to adjust.
And again, it seems to me, I'm not in the middle of the system, it seems to me that they are titrating it, or they have some kind of algorithm to say, if you are an essential worker in this phase and you have high-risk health conditions, you get to go first in 1C, and then they taper it out, it seems like. So it might take a little while, but yes, that's where we're at. If you want to know more about phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, go to this website, click on those. But that's where we are right now and what's coming up.
All right. So now let me rush us along. I'll leave that website up for you all. So once we get the vaccine, okay, and again, I want to emphasize again, you do not have to get the vaccine in order to be a part of the church or to come back to church. I'm going to address that in a minute specifically, but I want to emphasize again to you, you do not have to get the vaccine. Regina and I absolutely plan to get the vaccine. Regina and I absolutely plan to vaccinate every one of our children at the appropriate point when they can be vaccinated. The only one that is, to our understanding, that is a minor in the sense of with regard to the vaccine that won't be able to get it currently until there's some more study is Cassandra. Candace is 17. Of course, the 3 boys are all adults. So I'm just telling you our choice. We will. In fact, I'm going to try when I get vaccinated, I'm going to try to Facebook Live it. So you all will know when I'm getting poked in the arm. It is the arm, right? I don't have to bend over and get it in the rump, right?
Upper arm.
Oh, that's good. It'd be embarrassing to Facebook Live me bending over, getting it in the rump. All right. Anyway, little humor there.
You could ask them to do that.
No, I'm not interested in that. I was hoping to avoid that. Only you get to see my rump.
I will add one thing, which is from what I'm seeing, this is a very safe vaccine as vaccines go. They are having a few allergic reactions. You may have heard of that, especially at the beginning, but it's really about like the amount of allergic reactions from any vaccine. That happens. Some people react to any vaccine. So,
by the way, Regina, an aside, the Facebook and it's mainly Facebook is chattering now since I just made that bombastic statement about my rump. They're all like going, "Thank you, Jesus. Oh, we thank you. We're glad we don't have to see that, etc., etc." All I know is Regina likes my rump. All right, moving right along.
I'm seeing that there are sore arms. When you get a tetanus shot, it's rough for a couple days, and some headaches, some fatigue, even some low-grade fever, some body aches. I promise you, though, it's better than getting COVID, and all the complications, short-term and long-term, of that. That's why we're going to choose to do it.
All right. So after the vaccines, masks away, right?
Throw them in the trash. No, not really. Not at all.
Okay. So what's the posture, not only just coming back to church, but just our general posture in society? Let's say in 2021, we get the vaccine. What's our posture for the next few months, even after the 2 weeks or whatever that makes the efficacy fully in play, whether it's 2 shots or 1? What should we be doing with social distancing, with face masks, etc., and why?
Okay, let me say first, science takes time. People throughout this whole thing have said the scientists were wrong. First they said don't wear a mask, and now they're saying do wear a mask, and they obviously don't know what they're talking about. Well, at the beginning, nobody in science knows anything about what they're talking about. It's an educated guess. And as it goes along, it gets better and better and better. Right now, though, there are still a few, and they are fewer, but there are still a few unknowns, especially where it relates to this vaccine. First unknown is what I mentioned earlier. If you had the vaccine, we've said you're not going to die of COVID, but you still might be able to carry it around, whether you even know you have it in your nose or your mouth or whatever. You might be able to carry it around and it pass to someone else. So we're saying for now that if you have had the vaccine, even after the 2 weeks, you still need to wear your mask for the safety of others and social distance for the safety of other people. It would be very bad to have your vaccine, be careless, and go spread around sickness and make someone else very sick. We don't want
All right, pause for a minute.
Love our neighbor.
Pause for a minute. Ding, 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 ding. Scott gets a gold star for the day because somebody had asked the question before, and his answer was, yes, this will help prevent the, I think he meant spread, of you as a carrier of the virus, even if you don't have symptoms or are asymptomatic. So, Scott,
absolutely,
you'll give yourself
right,
a gold star. You were right. And that's the answer to the question, that even after you're vaccinated, we still need to wear masks. We still need to social distance for a season.
The other unknown is also why you need to wear a mask and still social distance. And that is what we talked about with these variants, because of these happy or unhappy accidents that these viruses do and change over time. We do not know, because the vaccine studies were done several months ago. And even though they have gone very fast, there is still some labs. And they're studying the wazoo out of this thing, I promise. They really want to make money. But they don't know when they did the studies to see if the FDA would give it emergency, permission or whatever. They didn't have these variants, and therefore the vaccine wasn't being tested against these variants that we have now. So we're not sure about that, how effective they are. Is it 95% efficacy against the South African strain and the UK strain and all of those things? We do not know. So until we know that, for your own good, like Scott said, you need to wear a mask to protect others, but also for your own good, you would need to wear a mask to protect yourself until we have those answers. Now, I will give one caveat because I want to be realistic and I don't want to be overly cautious if there's absolutely no need. If you have had your full vaccination and you have waited 2 weeks, I would even give it 3 weeks. And if you're meeting with someone who also has been vaccinated fully and has had 2 or 3 weeks, you are safer. It's up to you whether you wear a mask or not, but that is a safer position.
And I would argue to all of you that for basically 2021, you need to be prepared. I didn't say you would have to follow all the way through, but you need to be prepared to have a habit of having a mask, of wearing a mask, of staying back from folks, etc. And
have one in the car. How many times have I had to go back in the house and get a mask?
Yeah, I have stacks of them in the car now. Okay, so you just do that. So that until we get more clear of what's happening now,
we will get more clear. Think of how more clear now we are than a year ago.
Correct. Now I have a question. I have a question that's a great tee up for the last thing that you and I wanted to discuss, and then we'll get off. And I apologize. This was supposed to take 10 minutes, but Regina talked so much that it took longer. So anyway, plus, folks, if you haven't noticed, we're trying out a little bit new technology on the broadcast. So that was kind of what I was doing too. So I've been playing with a few of the toys there to see about using this. So Autumn,
I think I'm done.
Well, no, there's one more thing. That Autumn Tatro has a question, which is a great question. She must be listening in with her mom or her dad. Are we waiting for herd immunity before we get back together in person? And Autumn, that's a great question. First of all, the hard part is is
First
it
of all,
hard?
I'm glad Autumn understands what herd immunity is.
Yeah, well, mom and dad must be talking to her and helping her, and that's great. It's a great time for parents to have conversations with their young people. So I'm glad to hear that Matt and Melody are doing that. So the first thing is there's not a simple yes or no to that answer, because we do not have clarity on. We know what the concept of herd immunity is, but we don't know when that is going to be in place with regard to this. And the main reason, number one, we don't know it with regard to the main strains that we're dealing with. And second, we now have the mutations that are happening. All right. So
I would add one thing that I said earlier.
Whoa, wait, stop the presses. I thought you said you were done.
I was.
Oh, I guess you aren't done. This sounds a lot like our marriage. You're done, but you're not done. All right, go ahead.
I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, like I said earlier, herd immunity is not it happens in 1 minute. It's not an event as much as it is a process. So we know when we have perfect herd immunity because whooping cough doesn't pop up. But there's a process of getting into that. So how much herd immunity would better be
exactly. So that's the big question. Autumn, the answer about when we're coming back. First of all, we cannot come back until our physical campus can receive us back. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking June. That's the soonest.
I think my personal opinion, and this is an educated opinion, but it is an opinion. I think we're already starting to see some herd immunity from the number of people who have been exposed and carry some, immunity to it from exposure, added to the vaccines. I think we're starting on that process already. So you could say, okay, we have herd immunity. Well, ish.
Okay, so it's squishy. So then this big question of when do we come back to church? Well, first of all, physical campus has to be ready. So we're talking the soonest, the absolute soonest. And it might even be delayed further because running this project of all these different work that has to be done, it's been fun. Point is the soonest is June. We are set and scheduled to receive our chairs in June. All right.
We have a vaccine timeline and we have a renovation timeline.
That's exactly right.
On the renovation timeline, we're like 1A, maybe 1B.
Now, if you all want to be like the Romans of old who stood in church, well, then maybe we could start sooner. But I think you all would start belching and moaning about that. So I think you want seats. So that's the June piece. Prognostications are, you've heard, now these may be overly optimistic, they may be accurate, but are that by mid to late summer, everybody who wants a vaccine will have access to get a vaccine. What I'm looking at, along with the pastoral team, is when have we reached, and I don't have a number to tell you right now, when have we in the larger community reached a percentage of vaccinations that begins to point to that we have a high level of safety that with masking and social distancing, we can begin to start back to in-person services. And that, ladies and gentlemen, will be a judgment call. And it will be a judgment call that the pastoral team will be involved in, but it will be a judgment call that will be mine to own. And all of you can love me or hate me, take my name in vain or bless me for that judgment call. All right. That's part of the responsibility of being the leader that I currently am in my current role. That one's mine to call of when that exactly is. What my goal is that we do it in such a manner that those of you who do not, either because of your health and you're not able to, or you choose not to be vaccinated, you're the only ones that are at risk. And in fact, when you come into the environment with us, you're not at risk from us. That's my working goal. And so when is that?
Hopefully those two things will coincide.
Exactly. And so when is that? Right now, it will not be before the very end of June or July, August. Could it be the end of June? Possibly. Could it be July? More likely. Could it be August? It might be that. I'm hearing from a lot of different places that people are expecting that by the time we hit fall, that's when they are hopeful that normalcy in some sense is beginning to return to society writ large. Now,
the renovations, let me go a rabbit trail for a second. The renovations on that building, as you know, we have a unique building. That geodesic dome is an amazing structure, and it has, how many sides are on our building, babe?
It is a 15-sided building, I believe.
So nothing is normal with this building. The roof is highly complex and complicated to do. And how long has the painter told you it will take him to paint the inside of the sanctuary?
All of the rework of the ceiling and then the painting, because the rework is laborious. Each of those panels is its own unit that has to be worked on. And then you've got 2 coats of paint, the primer and 2 coats of paint. That whole process is going to take about 6 weeks.
So that's just the paint, not the carpet, not the roof, not the mold remediation. So it's just taking a while because of the building is a special building.
Thank you, James Beardsley, for a beautiful but exotic but weird building.
I love that building. It's awesome.
So that's part of it.
It's very much our church. We're different. We're not quite like anybody else, but we're really cool.
Yep. So I actually, Regina, I opened it up to questions. We've answered, I think, almost every one of them. There was one last one that is really me asking or being asked of me, which is to be compliant with social distancing. Is it possible for us to use the fellowship hall? It would be possible. If I have Sister Marjorie will be. Let me throw her up on the screen. Oh, I did the wrong one. Samantha was saying we bring our own chairs. So here's Sister Marjorie will be posted that. She loves public acclamation and attention. So I wanted to put her on the broadcast there. There you go, Sister Marjorie. I put you on blast. All right, I'll take you off. So you're
That's cool. I like that option.
I know. It's kind of cool, isn't it? All right. It'll also make you be circumspect about what you post. But anyway, moving right along. Like Samantha, you're going to help bury me in a grave. How dare you? Oh, remember I was digging my hole. Remember, I was digging a hole because I was making fun of you and stuff. And so she was going to help you out in burying me. The answer to that question is I honestly, given our attendance patterns pre-COVID, and given that there will be some people who, for various reasons, do not come back right away, I do not anticipate that we won't be able to handle the social distancing in our current structure inside of the sanctuary anyway. The
is she talking about, like, say, in May, or is she talking about afterwards needing to spread out?
I'm assuming she's talking about afterwards because the compliant with social distancing is still, we could hold multiple services and be compliant with social distancing. I've not brought us back into person because I do not trust social distancing minus the vaccines. And
I haven't gone into the whole discussion about aerosolization.
Yes. Let me just say that the restrictions have been haphazard across the country. Regina has a running joke. It's a very dark joke, but she says, I wonder if the vaccine, or excuse me, if the virus has gotten the memo that it is only allowed to infect people when they are standing. When they sit down, they're no longer infectable. If you've seen the restrictions.
Because we've heard people say, when you get to your pew, you can take your mask off.
Right. So I have taken
when you're in the restaurant, you need to wear your mask while you're walking around. But when you sit down at your table, you can take your mask off.
Right. So there's a bubble around each table that the coronavirus knows it's not allowed to infect you there. This is a big dose of Steven and Regina sarcasm. Forgive us. All right.
Very smart.
I'm not going to go into all that. So the point is, I'm assuming it's post us coming back where we're still being cautious with the social distancing. I don't think we're going to have a problem. And here's the great news. With the pew chairs, we're going to be able to set it up so that it will be very obvious if we're having a problem. We'll be able to know whether we're filled up, whether we've got a problem. And so I think we're going to be able to handle that. All right. I don't see any other questions that have come up.
Isn't it cool that God has used his time and given us the opportunity to do these things?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
His timing is perfect.
I agree 100%.
Remind me of that next time I'm doubting. Like probably in the next 15 minutes.
Yes, absolutely. All right, everybody. Don't forget, tonight, 7 o'clock, I will not be as long as we were on this. This is all Regina's fault. I just sat here quiet while she ran on and on and on and on about COVID-19. So you all know I will be much shorter tonight. I hope this helped you and informed you. Share it out to friends because this is relevant. Even though we're in Delaware, we did give you information that is relevant. Nationwide, you have to contextualize the specific information.
That COVID tracker website has all the different states you can go in, even American Samoa. And
exactly. So make yourself available to that. Share this broadcast out. And those of you that are on the backside of our broadcast that help us with some of the tech stuff, I think we might have a solution that'll make life a little simpler. So happy clap, as the Lugos say about that. But we'll see. We're going to test run it tonight as well. So I'll see you all at 7 o'clock. God bless. Have a great afternoon. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.